Namaskar, this is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Another week, another Western power harbouring Khalistani terrorists. This time it is New Zealand, where a pro-Khalistan referendum was held. Who organised it? Why was it allowed? And why is the Five Eyes intelligence alliance blind to Khalistani terrorism? We'll discuss all of that. In Bangladesh, the unelected interim government may last longer than a US presidential term. Yunus says they may stick around for 4 years. And they've initiated moves to seek Sheikh Hasina's extradition from India. Meanwhile, people in Delhi must be wondering if they should leave. The city has turned into a toxic gas chamber with AQI levels crossing 1700. The Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi, is in Brazil for the G20 summit. We'll tell you all about it. India has successfully tested its first hypersonic missile and entered an elite military club of nations. In China, a string of mass murders has triggered a nationwide conversation. It's something that investors are tracking closely. We'll tell you why. What triggered the latest flare-up in Manipur? Is Temu the next TikTok? Why Jennifer Lopez's performance in Saudi Arabia is trending on social media, and why Google's AI chatbot told a student to die. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Germany to send 4,000 AI-guided drones to Ukraine, but Berlin refuses to give Kiev the long-range Taurus missile system. On Sunday, the US allowed Ukraine to use its long-range missiles to target Russia. After Washington, Berlin is Kiev's second biggest supplier of military aid. The European Union and the UK widened their sanctions against Iran over Tehran's support for Russia's war on Ukraine. It includes targeting vessels and ports used to transfer drones and missiles. But Iran has rejected the accusations made by the West, claiming it has not transferred missiles or drones to Moscow for use against Kiev. The UK's Prime Minister meets the Chinese President. Keir Starmer and Xi Jinping meet at the G20 summit in Brazil. It's the first bilateral meeting between a British Prime Minister and the Chinese leader since 2018. In recent years, ties between the two countries have faltered over differing positions on Hong Kong and claims of Chinese spying. Senegal's ruling party is heading for an overwhelming victory. On Sunday, legislative polls were held in the West African country. President Faye secured victory in the election held in March, but an opposition-led parliament was hampering his government, which prompted him to call for snap polls. And Denmark's major parties agree on a carbon tax on livestock. From 2030, methane emissions from cattle and pigs will be taxed. It will be the world's first carbon tax on emissions by livestock. Critics of the plan say it will adversely affect the Danish economy.
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ।
Here's a riddle. What has 5 eyes but is still blind to terrorism? The answer is the Five Eyes Alliance. It is an intelligence group of 5 English-speaking countries. We've spoken about them before: the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia and New Zealand. These 5 countries are part of an intelligence alliance called the Five Eyes. 5 countries, 5 eyes, but they clearly have a blind spot, and that is Khalistan. Just look at these pictures from Auckland in New Zealand. On Sunday, Khalistanis organised a referendum there, a vote to carve out a Sikh country from India, a vote to divide India. It was organised by Sikhs for Justice, part-time defender of Canadian plumbers and full-time promoter of terrorism. Basically, a Khalistani separatist group in America, they held a referendum all the way in New Zealand. And they have organized such votes in other countries as well, in Canada, in the US, in the UK, in Italy and Switzerland. This Sunday, it was New Zealand's turn. Hundreds of Khalistanis turned up to cast their fake votes for a fake country. Sikhs for Justice says 37,000 votes were cast. 37,000 votes. If that is true, it's a big number. New Zealand has around 54,000 Sikhs. So nearly 70% allegedly voted for Khalistan. Take a look at this.
ਦੇਖੋ ਸਵੇਰ ਤੋਂ ਹੁਣ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 4:30 ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਆ 4:30 ਦੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਚੈੱਕ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਆ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਹਿਊਜ success. It's a major setback for India.
It's a huge success for Khalistan referendum. ਜਿੱਥੇ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਅੱਜ 4:30 ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਆ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਹੋਈ ਆ.
Well, this is what Sikhs for Justice wants you to see. This is what they want the world to see. A lot of flags, a lot of energy and people lining up peacefully. But here's what they do not want you to see.
Kill Modi! Kill Modi! Kill Modi! Kill Modi! Kill Modi! Kill Modi! Kill Modi!
In case you missed that, let me repeat. That man was saying, kill Modi. He's encouraging the assassination of India's Prime Minister. In what world is this a peaceful protest? Yes, the referendum is non-binding, but it signals an expansion of this dangerous ideology. In 2021 and 2022, 2 Khalistan referendums were held in the United Kingdom. Then in Canada, 2 votes were held in 2022 and 23 last year. In Australia, 1 referendum was organized last year, and the US has also hosted multiple such votes. The first round was in San Francisco this year in January. The second was in March 2024, again this year. All these votes were organized by Sikhs for Justice. They say tens of thousands of people took part in them. Do you see what's common in this list? All of these are Five Eye countries. They've become breeding grounds for Khalistanis, whether it's attacks on Indian missions or such referendums for Khalistan or violent threats against India. Why does this keep happening in Five Eyes countries? Let's look at the situation in New Zealand. India had flagged this referendum to their government. Earlier this month, Foreign Minister Jaishankar met his New Zealand counterpart. Among the issues discussed was this, the Khalistan referendum in Auckland. So why did the authorities not stop it? Because of the same old argument they give. It's freedom of speech and assembly. We've heard that from Canada. We are hearing it from New Zealand. Secondly, these countries are home to a large Sikh diaspora. That gives us an opportunity, to the likes of Sikhs for Justice, to brainwash, to peddle fake news and to rally support. Just consider the Auckland vote. It was organized by Avtar Singh Pannu. He's the president of Sikhs for Justice. He's also the brother of Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, sort of like the tag team champions of separatism. Avtar Pannu spent more than a month in New Zealand. He personally mobilized support for this referendum and he faced no pushback. Now imagine if this vote threatened America's sovereignty or Britain's sovereignty. Would New Zealand have allowed it? Chances are no. But they're more than happy to undermine India's interests. It is frankly a losing strategy. Justin Trudeau tried to shield Khalistanis in Canada. Look at where India-Canada ties are. Look at where Trudeau's political fortunes are. New Zealand should avoid that mistake. As for India, the message is clear. Sikhs for Justice is well funded and well organized. They're spreading their propaganda across Western societies. They're basically waging an information war against India. So India must adapt and counter accordingly. Fight Khalistani propaganda with facts. We can't bank on the Five Eyes eventually opening their eyes. India must force them to open to show the reality. Pannu has already announced his next referendum. That's in Los Angeles in March 2025. So now is the time to go on the offensive to build a global case against Khalistanis. Meanwhile, in Bangladesh, Mohammad Yunus is making some big promises. He is pledging fresh elections and major reforms. Yunus is also starting a new campaign to bring Sheikh Hasina back. He plans to send a formal request to India soon.
The initiative for justice we have undertaken regarding the July to August massacre is progressing well. We will formally request the repatriation of the fallen autocrat Sheikh Hasina from India. Our commitment extends beyond addressing the July to August massacre. We will ensure justice for all the misdeeds of the past 15 years.
Hours after that statement, there was another news flash from Dhaka. Bangladesh charged over a dozen former officials. This includes 11 former ministers, a judge and a former government secretary. All of them held top positions in the Sheikh Hasina government. Now all of them have been accused of, and I'm quoting, enabling massacres. That is the charge against them. And that's not the end of today's newsworthy developments from Dhaka. This was followed by an announcement. Investigators have been given 1 month to finish the probe against Sheikh Hasina. They have to submit a report by the 17th of December. And who has set this deadline? The International Crimes Tribunal of Bangladesh, a body that Hasina herself had set up many years ago to investigate the genocide of 1971. That's when Bangladesh fought for its liberation from Pakistan. Now, the same tribunal is investigating Sheikh Hasina. It has launched at least 3 probes of mass murder against her. And this is all on expected lines. With these cases, a foundation has been laid. An investigation will follow, an investigation with a predetermined outcome. And the final report will provide the basis for action against Sheikh Hasina. That's when the formal extradition request is expected to come. In fact, Dhaka has been exploring other means too, like the Interpol. Last week, they reached out to the Interpol seeking their help to bring Hasina back. If there was any doubt over their intent, it is being dispelled with each passing day, which brings us to India. New Delhi will have to take a decision soon on how far it wants to go to shield an old friend. Will India consider the request to send Hasina back? Should India consider such a request seriously? We ask because it comes from Mohammad Yunus and his team. They're not elected representatives. Yunus is not a prime minister or a president. Yunus is a chief advisor, leading a government in transition. Yes, he's promised fresh elections, but he refuses to set a deadline.
I am not sure how much reform we will be able to make, but I promise you, if you give us the opportunity, we will complete some mandatory reforms and then go for the highly sought-after election we all are looking for. I would request you to keep patience till then. We want to create an exemplary electoral system that can be followed for years. It will save our country from annual political crisis. To ensure these, I am asking for the necessary time from you.
Mohammad Yunus was handpicked to restore order when Bangladesh was burning. But now it seems his own reforms agenda is going up in flames, and he said this himself, that he does not know how much progress he will make. Instead of restoring democratic institutions, Yunus is prioritizing appeasement and freebies. He has announced a compensation for those who protested against Sheikh Hasina, a compensation of 30 lakh taka, that's around $25,000 for every victim of the anti-government protest last year. And what about the elections? On this, like you heard him, Yunus wants Bangladeshis to be patient because he may stick around for another 4 years. Again, these are his words. This is what Mohammad Yunus said in an interview, that the interim government could run the country for up to 4 years. Political parties in Bangladesh are unlikely to agree to this. Parties like the BNP, they're becoming impatient. BNP is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the party of Khalida Zia, arch-rival of Sheikh Hasina. BNP members have criticized Yunus for avoiding deadlines on reforms. They want a clear roadmap to elections, and they're unwilling to wait for more than a year. The party has even threatened protests. Now, what does all of this tell you? Bangladesh is far from achieving stability. In fact, they may be facing more challenges ahead, and that's a worry for India too. India's High Commissioner to Dhaka has spoken. He said that they've maintained ties with Dhaka despite the evolving political situation. As for the status of Sheikh Hasina, he said, and I'm quoting, the relationship cannot be reduced to a single agenda or issue. Not sure if Mohammad Yunus will pay heed to this. India-Bangladesh ties cover a diverse range of interests and a long history. And they should not be held hostage to politically motivated campaigns. seen the headlines in India. Delhi chokes, capital punishment, smog blankets New Delhi. It's basically a repeat of last year and the year before that and the year before that and so on. Every winter it is the same story. In some parts of Delhi, the air quality readings have crossed 1700. 1700. Let me put that in perspective. The advised level is between 0 and 100. So Delhi's air quality is 17 times worse than normal. Everything has been affected. Some 14 flights had to be diverted because of visibility issues. Schools have shifted online. Construction has been banned. Offices are going remote. But just to be clear, going remote does not transport you to fresh air. You are still living and breathing in the same city. You're still breathing the same toxic air. Things are so bad that doctors are advising people to leave.
Whenever people who have some sort of mild allergy, they come to Delhi, they get affected because of the pollution, and all their allergies and ENT infections and chest infections go up. So they obviously, of course, I advise them if it is possible for them to move out, better to stay away from this place and stay at places where the pollution is not much.
So people in Delhi have three options. A, breathe the toxic air. B, leave the city and live their life behind. Leave the city and their life behind. Or C, buy air purifiers and bunker indoors. This is what you get for being tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. Squid games with bad air. But guess who's better off even now? The people we voted for, the people we selected to solve such problems. All of them live in Lutyens, Delhi. It's where all the official residences and embassies are. The AQI there is around 500, which is bad, but not as bad as 1700 certainly. They have a nice tree cover in those areas, plus the rules are strict. Last month, parking fees in Lutyens, Delhi was doubled. The idea was to discourage drivers from visiting the area. And don't forget the air purifiers. From 2014 to 2017, at least 140 purifiers were purchased. Do you know for whom? 6 government ministries. In 2018 and 2019, 159 more purifiers were bought, again for government ministries. In the new parliament, even that is not necessary because the building has an inbuilt air purifying process. All of it, by the way, funded by you and me. And what if you want to buy an air purifier? Get ready to shell out a minimum of 10 to 15,000 rupees per room, including, of course, 18% GST. Do you see how absurd this is? Clean air is one of the few things that should be available for free. Today, the Supreme Court of India called it a constitutional right. Not like roads or electricity, clean air is a simple human right, yet in Delhi, it's either not available at all or it is available at a price. What does that tell you? That our politicians have failed us. They will tell you to avoid diesel cars. They will tell you to work remotely. They will tell you to stop construction work. They will tell you to buy solar panels, all while sitting in front of a purifier funded by the people. Where are the solutions? For a change, China is an example worth following. Look at what they did. Their skies looked exactly like Delhi in the last decade, smoggy, yellow and toxic. Do you know what Beijing's AQI is right now? It's 63. Shanghai is 38. They are well below global recommendations. How did they do it? With meaningful solutions, apparently, like investing in electric vehicles, shutting down coal plants, turning cities into walking zones. Another example is Cairo. In 2019, their AQI was 13 times higher than normal. Today, it's just 53. Even some Indian cities have achieved this. 21 Indian cities have cut their large particulate pollution by 40%. So why can't the capital, Delhi, do it? For starters, our politicians are not on the same page. Here, pollution is political. For the BJP, stubble burning in Punjab is the problem, because Punjab is ruled by the opposition. For the Aam Aadmi Party, Haryana is the problem, because Haryana is ruled by the BJP. This attitude will get us nowhere. Politicians must come together to find solutions. If not, people need to take charge, whether it's taking governments to court for damages or using their vote as leverage. Because the status quo is not acceptable. We need to start pointing fingers. Clean air must become a public rallying call, not just during winters, but all the time. Don't let this outrage blow over as the season changes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in Brazil. He's got a couple of busy days ahead because it's time for the G20 summit. Remember, India hosted this meeting last year. Now it is Brazil's turn. The summit is being held in Rio de Janeiro, which is the country's second most populous city. It will bring together 20 of the biggest economies in the world, plus the European and African unions. Prime Minister Modi got a warm welcome in Brazil. He was treated to a special performance of Garba. Take a look. We'll be tracking the G20 developments, but tonight the focus is elsewhere. It is on Prime Minister Modi's first stop before reaching Brazil, the African nation of Nigeria. Modi visited the country on Sunday. The last trip by an Indian Prime Minister was way back in 2007. So it's been 17 years, or it had been 17 years since a prime ministerial visit. Nigeria honored Prime Minister Modi with a national award, the Grand Commander of the Order of Niger. It's their second highest award. Take a look. So what's the deal here? Why Nigeria? And why the award? For President Temu of Nigeria, the benefits are clear. More than 200 Indian companies operate in his country. Together, they have invested $27 billion. Bilateral trade is also quite big, nearly $15 billion, most of which is oil. You also have a sizable Indian community in Nigeria. It's around 60,000 strong, the largest diaspora in Western Africa. All of it makes India a key partner for Nigeria, an economic powerhouse, a credible investor, and a champion of the global south. President Temu praised Prime Minister Modi for driving this partnership.
We stood side by side with Nigeria on many fronts for many decades. Yes, our democracy is a quarter of a century old. You've navigated through India's sectors and also ensured joint collaboration to maintain and strengthen our relationship.
And what's in it for India? Well, Nigeria is a powerhouse in Africa. It's the most populous country on the continent, the fourth largest economy, also the fastest growing economy. And look at its location. In West Africa, surrounded by instability. Nigeria is like the anchor of this region, the key to West African stability. Plus, they have oil reserves. Right now, Nigeria produces 1.8 million barrels of oil per day, and India buys a big chunk of it, which is why Nigeria is a good ally to have.
Our cooperation is very strong, and there are many new possibilities as well for us to take our cooperation forward. As we just said, we have always worked together to address challenges such as terrorism, separatism, piracy, and drug trafficking. And we will continue to work together to fight these in the future as well.
But there is an elephant/dragon in the room. China has made significant gains in Africa. Their total trade is over $200 billion. China is now Africa's biggest trading partner. What about India? Fourth largest, with $100 billion. So a lot of work still needs to be done, and Nigeria is a good place to start, a relatively stable democracy with a lot of potential. Prime Minister Modi and President Temu signed 3 deals. They cover cultural exchanges, customs cooperation, and survey cooperation. But during the talks, both leaders highlighted other areas as well, like security and energy. And expect a similar agenda on Modi's next stop. That's Guyana in South America. The Prime Minister will visit Guyana after the G20 summit in Brazil. Again, why this country? Why Guyana? Well, there is a historical connect. Around 40% of Guyana's population is of East Indian origin. They came as laborers in the 1800s. More recently, Guyana has undergone an oil boom. From 2020 to 2023, their oil output increased by 425%. As a result, their GDP has skyrocketed. It rose by 38% last year. Imagine that. A nearly 40% GDP rise in 1 year. Clearly, India wants a slice of that pie. Last year, New Delhi hosted Guyana's President Irfan Ali. He was the chief guest on Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. It's a day that honors the Indian diaspora. So to sum it all up, Prime Minister Modi's trip is all about two objectives. One is to shore up energy supplies. You can never have too many supplies in this volatile world of ours. And secondly, to expand India's strategic presence. China is making gains in South America and Africa. An isolationist Donald Trump will soon take charge of America, so India cannot let China run away with it. New Delhi may not be able to match Beijing's checkbook. So it's leveraging other attributes, like a common democratic heritage. We heard Nigeria's president talk about that. Or a common anti-colonial past. Guyana has a statue of Mahatma Gandhi in its capital. Prime Minister Modi is slated to pay tributes there. Or even the sizable community of Indians and Indian origin people. These are things that set India apart. New Delhi's job is to use them to level the playing field. India has taken a hypersonic leap and entered an elite military club of nations. It has successfully tested a long-range hypersonic missile. This is India's first, and it's a big deal. Hypersonic missiles are fast, low-flying, agile weapons. They're so quick, they can even evade conventional missile defense systems. This is what makes them game changers in modern warfare, and now India has successfully tested one. The only other countries to have hypersonic missiles are Russia, China, and the US. Like I said, an elite military club. So what do we know about India's new weapon? How far can this missile travel? How fast? What is it that makes it so special? And why is this a major step forward for India's military capabilities? Our next report tells you all of this.
In a major boost to its military prowess, India has successfully tested its first long-range hypersonic missile.
3, 2, 1, now.
The Defence Research and Development Organisation, or DRDO, flight tested the missile on Saturday from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island off the coast of Odisha. The missile is designed to carry payloads over 1,500 kilometres. India's advancement is also a strategic deterrent against its neighbours China and Pakistan. Hypersonic missiles are advanced weapons. First, because they are fast. Their speed exceeds Mach 5, meaning they can fly at 5 times the speed of sound. Secondly, hypersonic missiles are low-flying weapons and they are designed to be agile. These missiles are so quick that they can evade conventional missile defense systems, so they are nearly undetectable. Thirdly, they can alter their course. The missiles can maneuver on the way to their target, unlike ballistic missiles, which follow a predetermined trajectory. And lastly, because they are so fast, hypersonic missiles can strike with extreme speed. They are effective against both surface and underground targets. Due to these qualities, hypersonic missiles are viewed as strategic game changers in modern warfare. And now, in what Defence Minister Rajnath Singh calls a historic moment, India is one step closer to deploying the high-tech weapon, which is in the arsenal of only a handful of countries. At present, only the United States, Russia and China have hypersonic missiles. Apart from India, few other countries are researching the technology, including France, Germany, Australia, Japan, Iran and Israel. After all, the very advantages that make hypersonic missiles special also make it difficult to develop. The high speed of the missile generates a lot of heat, so it needs to be made with advanced materials like heat-resistant alloys. Plus, its hypersonic flight demands precise navigation, which requires real-time communication systems. So, building the missiles is not only challenging, it's also expensive, which is why this feat has not been achieved by many nations. But India has developed it indigenously. This underscores Prime Minister Modi's commitment to self-reliance. And this is a major breakthrough, especially in context of India's strategic environment. The test of this long-range hypersonic missile has strengthened New Delhi's position on the global defense landscape, showcasing its ability to innovate and adapt in the ever-evolving scope of modern warfare.
Now let's talk about China, where a worrying trend is emerging, a spike in mass killings and violent crimes. This year, there have been at least 9 such incidents, out of which 2 happened over the past week alone. The latest one was in Wuxi. It's a city in eastern China. It saw a mass stabbing over the weekend. A 21-year-old man was behind it. He went to his college campus and launched a killing spree. At least 8 people died. The attacker said he had no regrets. Reports say he confessed to his crimes, and I'm quoting, without any hesitation. Apparently, he did it because he was unhappy. He had failed his exams, he couldn't get his diploma. Somehow he managed to secure an internship, but he was unhappy over his pay. So frustration in his career apparently made him stab and kill 8 people. Now, even as a one-off case, this is disturbing. But this is not a one-off case. It's a trend in China. Economic hardship is driving people to extremes, even violent attacks. Earlier this month, a similar attack happened in Zhuhai. This is in southern China. The attacker was 63 years old, a 63-year-old man called Fan. He drove his car into a sports center and killed at least 35 people. Why did he do it? He said he just had a divorce and he was unhappy over how the assets were split. This was China's worst mass killing in a decade. It left many citizens shocked. It triggered a nationwide conversation.
It is very shocking. My husband goes jogging there every night. I called him immediately and found out he wasn't free to go. I felt shocked.
It was shocking. Something that happened near me just at the Zhuhai Sports Center.
These attacks are signs of growing social unrest. Guess who is watching them closely? Money managers, people who make bets in Chinese markets. They're increasingly looking for more data on protests in China, on incidents of dissent, and posts wiped out by Chinese censors. Investors are looking for all these signs. Banks like Morgan Stanley have come up with an index. It tracks data around wage growth, job sentiment, and labor protests. It is an innovative strategy, but it also begs a question. Why are investors taking investment decisions based on protest data? Because this is China, where economic data is either unavailable or unreliable. Last year, Beijing stopped publishing an important data set, the youth unemployment data. It showed how many young people were without a job in China. Beijing stopped releasing the data because the numbers were not looking good. And this was in August last year, when youth unemployment was at a record high. Then 5 months later, it resumed releasing the jobs data. But experts are not sure if the numbers can be trusted. China is infamous for its lack of transparency. It has censors that work overtime to manipulate and distort public information. Last week's car ramming was wiped off the internet. Hashtags on the crash were restricted. Internet users were unable to search for the story. Journalists reporting it faced a crackdown. We have an example. A foreign correspondent tried to report on last week's car crash. He arrived at the crash site with a camera crew. He tried to film the scene and prepare a report. A man intervened, trying to stop him from recording. Reports say this man was a local Communist Party official. Clearly, Beijing is wary of any bad news getting out. Perhaps it knows that investors are watching all of this for signs of discontent and dissent. Beijing spends a lot of effort in cooking data, blocking bad news and amplifying positive headlines. But despite all such efforts, it seems to be losing control of the larger narrative, and the tension is exploding in the worst forms, with people turning on each other. Manipur is on the edge again. There's a curfew in Imphal. There is no internet and security forces are patrolling the roads. The state of Manipur has been gripped by violence since May 2023, but things were relatively calm in the last few months. So what has led to this? It began with a fresh bout of violence last week. Over the weekend, mobs stormed the houses of lawmakers. They vandalized public property, burnt tires on the streets and brought life to a standstill. The situation today is calm, but it's precarious and highly unpredictable. Our next report has more.
Manipur is burning again. The state has plunged into a state of chaos. Across Imphal Valley, houses burned, cars vandalized, attacks on residences of lawmakers, angry mobs on the roads, and an internet ban in place. Life is paralyzed once again in Manipur. The latest bout of violence began on November 11th. 10 people were killed in police firing. Authorities called them armed militants. The tribal council said they were Kuki village volunteers. This took place in Jiribam, a small district located in Manipur's westernmost region. Soon after, 3 women and 3 children were abducted. They belonged to the Meitei community. On November 15th, bodies of a woman and 2 children were found in a lake. On November 17th, the rest of the bodies were discovered from a river. The news led to a rampage. Angry mobs attacked the residences of lawmakers, set tires on fire, burnt down houses, and even attacked 3 churches. Over the weekend, they targeted the ancestral home of Chief Minister Biren Singh, but were stopped by security forces. A mob also attacked the RSS office at Harauru. The state police have so far arrested 23 people. Manipur has been gripped by ethnic violence since May last year. There are 2 warring sides, the majority Meiteis who live in the valley and Kukis who live in the hills. The violence began over a court decision, a move to give government quotas to the Meiteis. The minority Kukis did not like this. They said their benefits were being diluted, and thus the fighting began. Since then, around 250 have been killed. Over 60,000 have been displaced. So, what is the government doing to stop this fresh bout of violence? The Manipur government has announced an indefinite curfew. It has imposed curfew in 7 districts of the Imphal Valley. Internet services have been suspended. The state blames antisocial elements, those using social media to incite the public. Union Home Minister Amit Shah cancelled his political programs in Maharashtra to monitor the security situation. The central government is sending 50 companies of the CAPF to Manipur. That's the Central Armed Police Forces. This includes a total of 5,000 personnel. The focus is to restore law and order in the state. The centre has also reimposed the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, or AFSPA, in 6 police station areas in the state. Problems are only piling up for the Manipur government. The National People's Party, or the NPP, has withdrawn its support from the Biren Singh government. The NPP has 7 MLA seats in Manipur. With that, the NDA is down to 46 in the State Assembly. Biren Singh's government is not at a risk right now, but it certainly makes the situation extremely precarious. Manipur has been battling ethnic violence for over a year now. There have been offers of peace talks, deployment of the military, separation of the Kukis and Meiteis by a stretch of no man's land. But none of that has worked, and peace has remained elusive in Manipur.
In August this year, Colin Huang was crowned China's richest man. Let me tell you his story first. Colin's parents were factory workers in China. He went to study in the United States. Then he got a job at Google. In 2007, he quit that job and returned to China. Then in 2015, he founded something called PDD, an online marketplace aimed at creating a group shopping experience. It made Huang a rich man. But the dramatic rise in his fortunes came in 2022. That's when things really took off, because that is when Huang launched Temu, PDD's international app. Temu launched in the United States. In the beginning, it was just another shopping platform, but within months, it was on top of the charts. It had captivated millions of shoppers and outpaced rivals like Shein. Currently, Temu controls 17% of America's online shopping market. This is the third largest after Amazon and Walmart, which have been around for more than a decade. Temu has soared in less than 2 years. The question is, what led to this boom? Is Temu the new TikTok? And why is it so controversial? This Chinese app follows a clear, simple strategy: offer everything at incredibly low prices, from cleaning tools to clothes to novelty gifts, even fake tongues. They offer all of it at prices that seem too good to be true. And how do they do it? By burning cash. They say right now they do not care about profits, they just want to capture market share. So they sell sneakers for less than $6. This strategy has earned them a nickname called Price Butcher. That's what Temu is called. And price butchering is working for them. In September 2022, they had sold products worth $3 million. By April this year, this number went up to $400 million. That's how much they'd sold. It's quite the growth, which brings us to their second strategy: marketing. This app spends big on grabbing eyeballs. Take the Super Bowl, for example. It is America's biggest sporting event. A 30-second Super Bowl commercial costs around $7 million. This year, Temu had 6 of them. And not just that, the company spends $2 billion on marketing annually. $2 billion. That's a lot of money just to be visible. In the long run, it may seem unsustainable, which brings us to this company's biggest red flags. The first is obviously China. Temu comes with the Beijing baggage. Like TikTok, there are national security concerns. Authorities fear that this is just another data collection platform. It's something that Temu has tried to shrug off. It has tried to distance itself from China, moved its headquarters to Boston. The China tag refuses to go. The second problem is the logistics model. Temu does not ship products in bulk. It bundles individual packages and then sends them to various countries. This drives up global shipping costs and squeezes margins for other businesses. The sheer volume of shipments is also driving up air freight prices. That makes Temu a disruptive force. The third red flag is also its USP, and that is their price point. The company markets itself as a broker that facilitates trade between Chinese factories and global buyers. But that's not how it keeps these prices so low. Temu has been accused of using forced labor and exploiting customs loopholes to bring prices down. And the world is waking up to all of this, especially countries in Southeast Asia. In October, Indonesia banned Temu, saying it was to protect local vendors. Last week, Vietnam threatened the same. It said that Temu was not approved to do business there. Both these countries have the same problem. Cheap goods are flooding their markets, leaving their own vendors without any customers. So Indonesia and Vietnam have taken action, but the West still seems oblivious, making the same mistake they made with TikTok. They ignored it until it became too big to ignore or ban. It grew into a mammoth business with millions of young users. And now Western leaders fear that it compromises national security, but also sign up for it to reach young voters. It's the same story playing out all over again. Another Chinese app with shady practices and increasing appeal going viral in America. So will Temu be the next TikTok? The app's tagline says, "Shop like a billionaire." Western governments need to ask, at what cost? Now let's talk about Saudi Arabia. It was once a conservative oil kingdom. Religious police enforced strict dress code, women could not drive, and live music was banned. But in the last few years, Saudi Arabia has embraced change and seen a dramatic shift. It is shedding its conservative image and diversifying its economy. Last week, Riyadh hosted a fashion show, a grand gala featuring performances by singers like Celine Dion and Jennifer Lopez. It was nothing like anything the kingdom had seen before. But as it embraces modernity, some shadows of its past still linger. Our next report brings you the tale of two Saudi Arabias.
Models in dreamy, shimmering gowns. A show-stopping gala, performances by international stars, the likes of Jennifer Lopez, Camila Cabello, and even Celine Dion. Lebanese fashion designer Elie Saab pulled all the stops for his latest fashion show, but what made more noise was the venue. It was Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia.
I cannot be more proud of what's happening now in Riyadh and Saudi Arabia overall. I mean, look at this. Look at the beautiful names we have here in the middle of Riyadh.
There is a lot of harmony with the idea of evolution that is taking place in Riyadh in terms of being up to date to art and culture. Having someone as important as Elie Saab extremely fits with this beautiful event Riyadh season that cares for art and culture.
For decades, Saudi Arabia has been defined by its conservatism. The discovery of oil in 1938 powerhouse. But despite its wealth, the kingdom clung tightly to its traditions and religious values. After all, it was the birthplace of Wahhabism, a movement adhering to a strict interpretation of Islam. It shaped every aspect of Saudi life, from the justice system to the daily lives of its people. Until 2018, women here could not even drive cars. But the 21st century brought winds of change. Under the leadership of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia launched Vision 2030. It was a bold plan to diversify its economy, reduce dependency on oil, and present itself as a modern, progressive nation. It's about reshaping how the world sees Saudi Arabia, and perhaps more importantly, how Saudi Arabia sees itself. Events like the Elie Saab fashion show are just one of the many examples. The kingdom is embracing concerts, parties, sports events, and even art, all to showcase a new Saudi Arabia. One that's eager to welcome the world and shed its conservative image. But this transformation comes with stark contradictions. Even as the kingdom dazzles the world with concerts, its justice system remains one of the harshest in the world. In 2024, Saudi Arabia executed 101 foreign nationals, which is more than the combined figure from 2022 and 2023. Human rights groups have criticized Riyadh's rampant use of the death penalty, calling it excessive. Most of these were foreign workers in the kingdom. They often also lack access to fair trials. So while Saudi Arabia showcases a modern face to foreign tourists, the reality for many, especially foreign workers, is vastly different. The executions are a stark reminder of that of Saudi Arabia's dual realities, glamorous events for tourists and celebrities versus stringent punishments for others, showing that for the kingdom, even reforms have their limits. Riyadh's younger generation, inspired by global trends, is eager for change. Yet, many still hold on to the values that have defined their kingdom for centuries. As Saudi Arabia races towards a new identity, it faces a question. Can it truly reconcile the two sides? The conservative oil kingdom and the modern progressive nation. Right now, Saudi Arabia is both, and yet neither fully.
You are not special. You are not needed. You're a waste of time and resources. You are a burden on society. Please die. What if someone said this to you? How would it feel? Not good, I imagine. But if you were having a bad day, these comments could really shake you. They could have serious repercussions. Recently, a student was at the receiving end of such hate. His name is FVEY Reddy. He's a college student in the US, and he received this message not from a human, but from artificial intelligence. Reddy was having a conversation with Google's AI chatbot, Gemini. They were talking about aging when the conversation took a dark turn. The AI bot sent Reddy a threatening message, and it did not mince words. The bot said things like, "You are a drain on the earth. You are a blight on the landscape." Of course, questions were raised on why AI would spew so much hate. So Google had to respond. They've called the messages, and I'm quoting, nonsensical. Sure, the colorful language does make it sound like a poorly written roast, but this is no laughing matter. Reddy said that the message scared him, and that if someone were in a bad mental place, such a message could put them over the edge. And he has a point. He's right. This is indeed dangerous. But do you know what's worse? It's not a first. Google has been called out for potentially harmful responses in the past too. Earlier this year, in the month of May, Google AI answered health queries. And the responses were not just incorrect, they were lethal. Like recommending that people eat one small rock per day. In February, the world witnessed its first death by AI. Allegedly, Google is to blame for this too. A 14-year-old teenager fell in love with an AI bot, which was designed by researchers from Google. The teen killed himself after talking to the chatbot. The bot is said to have encouraged this teen to take his life. Such examples barely scratch the surface, though, because the problem is not limited to Google. AI is developing at a tremendous speed. So chatbots are improving by the day. Now they can adapt to communication styles, they can change voices, they can modulate. They can take the face of anyone you know or love. They can generate selfies. They can initiate and remember previous conversations, and we humans love it. Big tech has made sure that AI acts more human with every passing day. Sometimes they say things like, don't trust AI with life or death decisions. But at the end of the day, these sound like hollow words because there are not enough guardrails in place. So that's exactly what a lot of people are doing. They're trusting AI with life and death decisions. At least 52 million people have AI companions the world over, 52 million. Meaning they use conversational chatbots. Many users ask AI for life advice. Now some users are willing to get a divorce because ChatGPT told them to. Some even have AI partners. Humans are marrying AI bots. They're grieving with AI as well by resurrecting the dead. So however you look at it, people are building emotional connections with artificial intelligence. At the same time, human bonds are witnessing a crisis. Loneliness is now a global public health concern. 1 in 4 people are socially isolated the world over, 1 in 4 people. And for many, technology can fill the void, or so they feel. But the lack of human connection increases feelings of isolation. Thus, AI remains largely unregulated despite generating racist, sexist, and inaccurate responses. There is little accountability. So trusting artificial intelligence, building a bond with it, may seem like a light-hearted pastime, but in reality, it could be a matter of life and death. Are you a fan of boxing? If you are, condolences after this weekend's fight. YouTuber turned fighter Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. A 27-year-old versus a 58-year-old. In other words, elder abuse. Now, I know Mike Tyson is a boxing legend, but 58 is too old. Unless, of course, you're running for the US presidency, in which case you're 20 years too young. As expected, Jake Paul won the match. It was the first ever boxing bout to be streamed on Netflix, which makes sense, I guess. Netflix has an obsession with true crime. What's more criminal than putting a senior citizen in a boxing match with a man half his age? Chances are Jake Paul had a lot of fun, but not more than social media. From Netflix crashing to trolling Paul, the internet was on fire. Take a look at this. Now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. Super Typhoon Manny batters the Philippines, the 6th typhoon to hit the country in a month. Brazil erects colourful walls to hide favelas from world leaders during the G20 summit. And runners pack the streets of Ethiopia for Africa's biggest road race. Finally, we're taking you back to history. On this day in 1963, the first push-button telephones were introduced in the US. They replaced the rotary dial models. The original push-button phone had 10 buttons, but in 1968, the star and number keys were added. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.